So in number 137, we're given this recursively defined sequence. Right? This is telling us, in the first part, they're telling us what the first term is, and then it's telling me how to find another term in the sequence. And this is written a little bit funky. It's a little different than what we've seen, but it says, look, the next term, and then this is the term before it. So we've been looking at a lot of n and then n plus ones, but this, if you look at this, what this means is, like, for example, this would be the third term in the sequence. And then if n is 3, this right here, 3 minus 1 is 2. That's the one before it, right? So this is the term that precedes it. So this says, in order to get a term, take the term that precedes it and multiply by -2. And I know, because if I'm multiplying, if I've got a multiplier that's my generator, this is an exponential or a geometric sequence, right? So this is definitely geometric. So the first thing it says, list the first 5 terms of the sequence. So my first term is given to me, it's -5. And then this rule says, in order to get the next one, multiply the previous one by -2. So doubling that and taking the opposite of it would make a -10. And then the next one, still doubling an opposite side, would take me to 20. Doubling opposite side would take me to -40. And then the fifth term in that sequence should be +80. So it's got kind of a fun pattern here where every other term is positive or negative, right? And all of them are, well, I don't know. Yeah. Actually, all of them except for the first one are even also too, right? Because my generator is -2, but the first one definitely is not even. Now, the explicit term, right? For a geometric sequence, the general pattern we've been looking at is, I guess I'll use t. The value of any particular term is the value of the 0th term, and I'll just use the variable, I don't know, b for that. Times your multiplier raised to the power of n, the variable in your sequence. Right, this would be equivalent to, hey, the value at the sequence is, this would be not for a sequence, this would be for a line, right? Would be b times a to the x power. So nothing magical about this, right? This is just the variable that I'm taking as my input, and notice that ends up in the exponent. So let's do this for this sequence. So the big thing is we need 2 pieces of information. We need to know what our 0 term is, and we also need to know what our multiplier is. Our multiplier we've got down, right? We can see each time as we move forward, we're multiplying by the number -2, and that was evident up here at the beginning. Our 0 term, though, in order to get back to that, I'm going to make a hard line here because this is the first term. But if there was a term before that one, we would get it by dividing by -2. So it would be -5/2, right? I could write it as 5 over -2 or -5/2. Now, if you think, if I take that term and I multiply it by my multiplier, if I multiply that by -2, it would become exactly 5. So this is my 0 term. And that's what I'm going to use to write my answer, right? My answer is going to be t of n equals the 0 term, -5/2, times my multiplier, -2, and that's raised to the nth power. And it's really instructive, to just grab your calculator and just do that, right? -5 over, let me do that. Here's a calculator. So let's say that I wanted to know the first, second, third, fourth. If I wanted to know the 5th term in the sequence, right? That would be when n is the number 5. So here's n is 5. And if I plug that in for this, right? If I plug in 5 to this spot, the value of the 5th term is, let's grab my calculator and turn it on, and we'll go -5 divided by 2. So there's -5/2 times, I'll use parentheses, -2, and I'm going to raise that to the power of 5 in this case. And as soon as I do that, it produces the value of 80, right? So I like to just, point this out. This is not without meaning, right? This is telling me if I wanted any particular value in this sequence, if I plug that in, if that's the argument for this function produces that particular value. And what's nice about it is I could figure out what the 50th term is without having to go through all the previous terms just by plugging in the number 50 there. Anyways, that's it for this question.